Yo, Big C in the house. You know the name. Fin Posse Podcast. Changing the game. Fins up high. Feel the aqua and orange. Miami Heat blazing. We scorching the floor. Movino the tour. We stacking the saga. Legacy deep, call it football nirvana. Big C, break it down, got the stats in his veins. Play-by-play knowledge like he's calling the chains. Fins flying on the field, opponents feel the blast. Tyreek cheetah speed, leaving DBs in the past. Waddle with the wiggle, defense with the clamp. Aqua drip so clean, whole squad's the champ. Tune in, Big C, got the mic on lock. Fin Posse Podcast, it's the cream of the crop. Breaking news, hot takes, repping the block. For the Dolphin faithful, it's the one-stop shop. Fin Posse. We the voice of the fans. Miami stand tall, got the world in our hands. Best podcast, yo, ain't no debate. Big C, big vibes, setting it straight. Defense smash, call it aqua tsunami. X locking routes like a South Beach Armani. O-line holding strong, trenches like a fortress. Big C dissected, no stack goes dormant.
Try to play, but you're never gonna beat me. Look the other way, what I'm doing ain't easy. Bloody hands stained from the people who deceive me. Muddy hands break through the chains, go free me. Looking for change, looking for pain. Pulling a mob, pushing a train. I'll never stop, stick to a lane. Pick up the pieces and go rearrange. I'll be the best above all the rest, put me to the test. Expect nothing less, your check as I'm chess. What's happening next? Yeah. He got the venom, a tangible weapon, no coming in second. This life is a lesson. He got a new engine from pain, it's a blessing. New focus, no guessing, just bold and obsession. All in his possession, you got their attention. I'll leave an impression and take your redemption. Just kill no discretion, your mind is away.
What up, Fin fans? Welcome to another episode of the Fin Posse Podcast. I'm your host, Big C, and this is brought to you by Game Changers Media. Wow, a lot's happened in the last 24 hours. Yesterday, I was on my way to work when news dropped of the Miami Dolphins firing Mike McDaniel. Now, we had talked about this the day before on the channel, and the assumption was that Mike McDaniel was safe, that he was going to have an opportunity to come back and coach in 2026. And I wasn't completely against it, but I did say that, if a sexier option became available, if a Mike Tomlin became available, a John Harbaugh became available, that would change up everything. And lo and behold, 24 hours after John Harbaugh is relieved of his duties in Baltimore, coincidentally, the Miami Dolphins go ahead and part ways with Mike McDaniel. So you can put two and two together. The franchise can act like that had nothing to do with that, all that they want. But reality is the Miami Dolphins don't make this move. They do not move on from Mike McDaniel unless they feel they had a better option. Now you can look at the rest of the coaching candidates around the league, and we can have arguments back and forth. Who's a better candidate than Mike McDaniel? That's nor here nor there. We all know how Stephen Ross feels about Mike McDaniel, so it was going to have to take a considerable upgrade. Someone that was truly valued around the league to become available for the Miami Dolphins to part ways with Mike McDaniel. And John Harbaugh is obviously that dude. He's obviously that dude. But we're gonna talk about it. We're gonna break it down. Is it a guarantee that John Harbaugh chooses the Miami Dolphins? We'll discuss that. Because to be real, there's better options out there for John Harbaugh. Is it all or nothing on John Harbaugh? does it set this franchise back if we don't get John Harbaugh? You might be surprised with my answer. And I'm interested to hear your answers. We got a general manager. We're trying to figure out the general manager position. We held our first set of interviews 2 days ago. Yesterday, another set. Supposedly the final four. We'll break down that list. But yeah, I appreciate you all being with me. Let's check out the chat this morning. See who's all up in here. Lombardo, good morning, brother. Blake, good morning. Marcos, good morning. Good morning, good morning, good morning. Absolute Cinema. Looks like we're getting John Eric Sullivan for GM Packers. Absolutely a possibility, right? John Eric Sullivan is being fired. It's finalized. I mean, it's not surprising. I felt like he was probably the favorite. The Green Bay Packers have had success. I'm not in love with what their front office has done as far as quarterbacks. I mean, you go from Brett Favre to Aaron Rodgers to Jordan Love. That's not a bad deal. They obviously know how to get quarterbacks in the building. We shall see, though. I don't hate the move. I don't love the move. I have to do some more investigating upon the dude. But yeah, if you're saying it's a done deal, it's a done deal. I gotta get this one little logo off the screen. I don't know why it's still on there. Let me see if I can't get it off real quick. Let's see. Yeah, there we go. Boom. Okay. So let me do some catching up because, like I said, I was on my way to work. I know you guys have seen all this. You've probably heard all of it. As Miami Dolphin fans, you probably watched a million different shows, heard a million different opinions. This is just mine, and I want to hear from you. Lots of shows don't give you an opportunity to hear your opinion or voice your opinion unless you pay them. I would like to get some money, but Miller, I see Miller sending super chats to my boy TD. He ain't never sent me a super chat. It's cool though, but yeah, Mike McDaniel fired as Miami Dolphin head coach, right? That was the first step. Second step, Stephen Ross releases a statement. I want to thank the players and coaches for their hard work throughout the 2024 season, as well as the fans for their support. As owners of this team, I am ultimately accountable for the success and failures. We fell short of our expectations this season, and I understand and share in the frustration in our performance on the field. As we now look back towards 2025, our football operations will continue to be held by Chris Greer and Mike McDaniel with my full support. That was the one from last year, right? Yeah, this was the one from last year. What the hell? This is the status quo, the one that became so popular that we like to mock over and over and over. Okay, here's the fresh. My fault. I've clicked on the wrong one. My fault. So that was the one that status quo wasn't going to be good enough. This is the statement from Stephen Ross yesterday. After careful evaluation and extensive discussion since the season ended, I have made the decision that our organization is in need of comprehensive change. I informed Mike McDaniel this morning that he has been relieved of his duties as head coach. I love Mike. I want to thank him for his hard work, commitment, and the energy he brought to our organization. Mike is an incredibly creative football mind whose passion for the game and his players who was evident every day. I wish him and his family the best moving forward. The best moving forward. Now, I ask you guys this question. How many of you truly believe, because at this point, when Stephen Ross releases a statement, when the Miami Dolphins fire Mike McDaniel, they say they've had no contact with John Harbaugh. None. Zero. Zilch. How many of you truly believe that they didn't reach out to get a feeler and see if John Harbaugh would be possibly interested in coming to the Miami Dolphins before they fired Mike McDaniel, before they went on and moved and went ahead with this move. How many of you truly believe that? I'm curious. How many of you truly believe that statement? Because I don't. I don't believe that nobody reached out to John Harbaugh's representatives and said, hey, would you be interested in this Miami Dolphins job? And listen, John Harbaugh is going to have his pick of jobs. So it's not like he's got to say yes and cater to any football team. He's going to have his pick of positions that he wants. Of the 8 available job openings, John Harbaugh can have his pick. But to believe that the Miami Dolphins, who were acting like Mike McDaniel was safe, doing everything, everybody was under the assumption that he was safe to just out of the blue move on from him, but only after John Harbaugh became available. I don't believe it. I do not believe it. Listen, I was born in the day, but not yesterday. Not yesterday. But anyway, the Miami Dolphins went on and conducted some general manager interviews. The Miami Dolphins search for a new general manager is advancing quickly, with the team dropping their initial 8 candidates to a final 4 on Wednesday. According to NFL Network's Tom Pelissero, Miami is setting up in-person interviews with Los Angeles Chargers assistant general manager Chad Alexander, who I felt like was the favorite. If you're trying to go out and you're trying to get John Harbaugh, you would think that you would go out and get someone that has a positive working relationship with John Harbaugh. You got Green Bay Packers Vice President of Player Personnel, John Eric Sullivan, who we've seen in the chat. He is obviously the next general manager of the Miami Dolphins. They're finalizing a deal now. I haven't gotten a chance to take a look at that, but I believe you. You'd have no reason to lie. Another candidate was San Francisco Director of Scouting and Football Operations, Josh Williams, and Dolphins interim general manager, Champ Kelly. Listen, the Dolphins moved on this quick. If this is true that John Eric Sullivan is the next general manager of the Miami Dolphins did this quickly. This was done quickly. Now, there wasn't a bunch of general manager positions available in the league. Miami Dolphins were one of the few openings, so they pretty much had their pick. Listen, John Eric Sullivan, I got to find out more about the guy, but he definitely wasn't in the top 2 or 3 people at the top of my list. He wasn't one of the top people at on top of my list, but I'm willing to give the guy an opportunity, a chance. You know what I mean? I'm not going to be negative about it. I'm not going to be negative. Now, obviously, everybody was expecting Chad Alexander. You want John Harbaugh, Chad Alexander's the answer, right? Chad Alexander's the answer. But this was dropped too. I'm told the Dolphins are expected to make a decision on their new GM by tomorrow. They met with interim general manager Chad Kelly on Wednesday, and the other 3 candidates, Chad Alexander, John Williams, and John Eric Sullivan, flew in South Florida late last night for in-person interviews that they are taking place today. This is the key right here, though. Here's the deal. If Harbaugh isn't cool with the GM that the Dolphins hire, it's not just going to be a match. That's something the Dolphins are willing to accept. Yes, they are interested in Harbaugh, but the Dolphins are prioritizing the general manager search over the head coaching search. That's the structure they desire. That said, they have 4 very respected and viable candidates up for the job, one of which has a strong history with Harbaugh, Chad Alexander. So it's all still on the table. The Miami Dolphins, with that statement right there, the Miami Dolphins value the general manager more than they do the head coach. And that's not something that a person that has the status of a John Harbaugh is probably too excited about, to be honest. You know, you're more worried about the general manager, which I get. The general manager usually has more staying power than the head coach. The general manager is responsible for putting the team together. To be real, the general manager is probably the more important position. So the fact that the Miami Dolphins are more worried about getting the general manager job right over the head coach job, I get it. It makes sense. It makes sense. It definitely makes sense. Now, you know, obviously he wasn't lying by that statement. If they were all concerned about John Harbaugh and that was the only avenue that they were going towards, they would have hired Chad Alexander, right? They would have done anything to appease John Harbaugh, and you would have to think that John Harbaugh would have wanted Chad Alexander. Obviously, with them going this other route, you know, they're not concerned with necessarily meeting all the needs of John Harbaugh. Does that mean John Harbaugh does not come to the Miami Dolphins? No, not necessarily. No, not necessarily. But why would he want to? Why would he want to? Why would he want to come to the Miami Dolphins? Why would John Harbaugh choose the Miami Dolphins over the Atlanta Falcons, over the Tennessee Titans, over the New York Football Giants? Why would John Harbaugh do that? Why would he choose the Dolphins over any of those franchises? Because let's be real, the Miami Dolphins are in a very bad position right now. This isn't a sexy job right now. This is not a good job. This is not a good job right now. First off, we're in cap hell. You got a quarterback that's on the books that, you know, you don't know what to do with. Our draft picks outside the top 10. You're not an overly talented team. The talent that you do have on the team is all up for new contracts. So that, you know, this isn't a very sexy job. It's not. Especially when you put it up against some of the other jobs. They have a rankings out of they got a couple different rankings, but right now the Miami Dolphins are ranked 8th out of 8 teams. And this is what this particular site says. Number 8, the Miami Dolphins. They fired Mike McDaniel on January 8th following days of uncertainty about his status. Miami has one of the league's worst cap situations, including quarterback Tua Tagovailoa. Terrible contract to work through in 2026. Miami's draft positioning also makes it tough to draft a passer in the weak quarterback class. But the new coach gets to come in with a general manager, a new general manager. Then they got the Arizona Cardinals because of Kyler Murray's contract. That's an issue and stuff, but they're still ranked above the Dolphins. Number 6 on the list is the Cleveland Browns because they're still dealing with Deshaun Watson's contract. But they do still have Shedeur Sanders. They also need a new head coach. Atlanta Falcons, they got a quarterback that could possibly be the franchise guy, Michael Penix Jr. They got a stud. They got a stud running back. They got some young weapons at wide receiver. They don't have a first round pick this year, so that puts them down the list a little bit. Number 4 is the Tennessee Titans. Obviously, they drafted Cam Ward last year. They got the Kansas City Chiefs former assistant general manager Mike Borzina as their general manager. They also had the number 4 pick that they can add a real difference maker. So that looks like a very enticing job. The New York Giants, You got Jackson Dart, Malik Neighbors, Theo Johnson, Abdul Carter, Cam Scadaboo, a top 8 draft pick this year. The New York Giants look like a very, very enticing job this year. Number 2, you got the Raiders. Obviously, the Raiders, they got the number 1 pick in the draft. They're going to be able to go out and get you a quarterback. They got $100 million in projected salary cap space. You're going to be able to build that team the way you want to. You're out in Vegas. The weather's good. Party town. And then the number 1 available job is the Baltimore Ravens, which John Harbaugh is leaving. You know what I mean? And obvious reasons. You got a franchise quarterback. You got an all-pro quarterback. You got a league MVP at quarterback. So that's the number 1 job available. But, of course, John Harbaugh isn't going back to the Baltimore Ravens. Dean says Dolphins are doing the best thing by not showing their cards with the GMs interviewing. Bonnie says one reason would be given all the power to do what he wants, including deciding the GM. Well, Bonnie, that's not the case. They hired a GM. They hired a GM before head coach. So he, unless John Harbaugh is telling him that he wants Eric Sullivan, that's not the case. New York media sucks and taxes. That's true. That's true. But, you know, there's other aspects of New York that are beneficial. I mean, it's the media capital of the world. I mean, it's, you know, there's other avenues and possibilities. Yeah, Bonnie, I guess they're finalizing a deal with John Eric Sullivan from the Green Bay, or from the Green Bay Packers. Let's see if we can find that. Dolphins hire GM. Let's see if we can't pull it up. Okay, let's pull it on up. Pulling on up. Share screen. Add the screen. Let's make it bigger. Okay. Dolphins reportedly set to hire John Eric Sullivan as new general manager. The Miami Dolphins are reportedly finalizing a deal to hire John Eric Sullivan as the franchise new general manager, according to ESPN's Adam Schefter. Sullivan has served as the vice president of player personnel of the Green Bay Packers since 2022. He will replace Chris Grier, who parted ways with Denver in October after serving in the organization since 2000. The 50-year-old Sullivan grew up in football as his father, Jerry, coached in college in the NFL for nearly 40 years, including spending the 2004 season as the Dolphins wide receivers coach. The younger Sullivan, who was part of the GM interview circuit last offseason and spoke with the Las Vegas Raiders, New York Jets, and Tennessee Titans, has only worked for the Packers. He began as an intern in 2003, worked his way up through the scouting department before being promoted to VP of player personnel. According to the Athletic's Diana Rossini, Troy Aikman was a big supporter of Sullivan's after the Football Hall of Famer and ESPN broadcaster was brought on as a consultant by the Dolphins during their GM search. Sullivan's first big task will be to find a replacement for head coach Mike McDaniel, who was fired on Wednesday after 4 seasons in charge. He'll then have to figure out what to do with quarterback Tua Tagovailoa, who will be entering the second year of an extension next season that will account for $56.4 million of the salary cap. Free agency will be important this offseason after the Dolphins finish 7-10 and in third place in the AFC East. missing out on the postseason for the 7th time in 9 seasons. They are currently scheduled to select number 11 overall in April's NFL draft. So obviously, Adam Schefter is, Adam Schefter is one of the main guys for ESPN. If Adam Schefter says something, typically, it's gold. You can take it to the bank. But what does that mean for John Harbaugh coming to the Dolphins? What does that mean? Did the Dolphins get news that John Harbaugh wasn't going to come to Miami regardless? What up, JD? Bonnie says the timing of everything just really seems suspect. Yeah, it's kind of crazy. It's kind of crazy. Dean says Harbaugh's going to the Giants now. It just don't make sense. Make it make sense. And that's the problem with this organization, right? This organization doesn't do things that make sense. They never have. You make us believe that Mike McDaniel's safe. John Harbaugh becomes available. You fire our head coach because you obviously got the fan base thinking, all right, we're going after John Harbaugh. And then instead of doing everything possible to make John Harbaugh happy, you hire a random ass guy that John Harbaugh is probably not going to want as general manager. Now, I could be wrong. That Chad Alexander isn't the choice for John Harbaugh. But I don't believe that this John Eric Sullivan has any type of real relationship with John Harbaugh. He hasn't had no other jobs besides Green Bay. He spent his whole career in Green Bay. John Harbaugh has never worked for the Packers. So they had to have hired this general manager knowing that it was going to affect the chances of John Harbaugh coming to the Dolphins. You had to have known it's going to affect it. And then what? What are we going to be, the Packers of the South? He's going to come here and hire the DC for the Packers. He's going to come here and hire the DC for the Packers. So we're going to have the defensive coordinator for the Packers. We'll have no offense. We'll have no offensive minded guy that has any, the DC for the Packers, he hasn't proven that he can run a franchise. He hasn't proved that he can bring along a quarterback. He's a defensive guy. And at this point, we have Weaver right now, unless Weaver takes one of the job openings. Is Harbaugh definitely going to the Giants, or are you just saying that? Is John Harbaugh really going to the Giants, or are you just saying that? That's just what you're thinking. The Miami Dolphins just never do what makes sense. They never do it. They never do what makes sense. And it drives me freaking nuts. It drives me nuts. Listen, I don't think it was all end all be all to get John Harbaugh. And I was going to break down a couple reasons why. I think John Harbaugh is a very good coach. I think he's an absolute upgrade over Mike McDaniel as far as being a leader of men. Because let's be real, John Harbaugh has dealt with some strong personalities. He's dealt with some really great players for the Baltimore Ravens. He's dealt with really great players for the Baltimore Ravens, and you never really heard of any trouble or problems coming out of Baltimore until recently with Lamar Jackson being a little bit of a diva. But the fact that he's been there so long and dealt with so many strong personalities, like we're talking Ray Lewis, Ed Reed, Terrell Suggs, Lamar Jackson. You know what I mean? Some pretty big names. Some pretty big names. So he's absolutely a leader of men, and I think he could change the culture here in Miami. As far as him and his ability as a head coach, I don't know how great of a head coach he is. If you look back at John Harbaugh's career, he's been blessed with some really great teams. He's been blessed with some really great teams. So it's hard to judge him, as far as what he can do if he doesn't have a superstar team around him. First and foremost, you probably had the greatest general manager of ever drafting your team. Ozzie Newsome is probably the greatest general manager this league's ever seen. The amount of Hall of Famers this guy has drafted over the course of his career is astounding. It's just crazy how many great players Ozzie Newsome has drafted. Now, if you take a look at John Harbaugh, when he took over, he was there for 18 years. John Harbaugh took over. I think I got a thing. This is John Harbaugh's career record with the Ravens by year. So he took over in 2008. 11-5, went to the playoffs. But that team had Ray Lewis, Ed Reed. Their defense from 2008 to 2012 was a top 3 defense. One of the greatest defenses this league's ever seen. From 2008 to 2012, 13, when they won that Super Bowl, one of the greatest defenses this league's ever seen. He took over a team that was primed to win a Super Bowl. And then from 2008 to 2024, he's had one of the greatest quarterbacks, dual threat quarterbacks this league's ever seen. A 2-time MVP leading this football team. So the years that you got to take a look at, and the years that make me really curious, is the years that he didn't have a Super Bowl ready team. And that's them years right here, 2013 to 2017. And that record's not very impressive. This is when Ray Lewis, Ed Reed left, where the defense was just okay. I mean, they still had players like Terrell Suggs, Haloti Ngata, still very good players. They still had pretty decent teams. They just weren't Super Bowl caliber teams. And he struggled a bit. I mean, he had 2 playoff appearances, but just barely making the playoffs. He had a 5-11 season. And then you go and you draft Lamar Jackson, and that's when your career picks back up. But some of the great teams that he's had on this team are some of the great players he's had, some of the great teams he has. The fact that he only got 1 Super Bowl win is that's a little concerning. That's a little concerning. Again, do I think John Harbaugh is one of the better coaches in this league? I do. But I don't think we're missing out on an Andy Reid. I don't think he is, an all-time great coach. And I don't think the Miami Dolphins are going to be crippled if they don't get John Harbaugh. I don't think they're going to be crippled if they don't get John Harbaugh. I think John Harbaugh can help rebuild this team, change the change the overall feel. But I think we'll be all right if we don't get him. And right now, I have to believe that we're not going to get him. Like I said, in the rankings, when they're ranking the jobs available, we're coming in last. We're coming in last because this team is in serious trouble. We're in salary cap hell. We don't have a top 5 pick to go out and get a new quarterback. We don't have a whole lot of talent. We don't have any superstars, that's for sure, besides Devon Achane. I think Devon Achane is a superstar. Other than that, Jordan Brooks, he's one of the top tackling linebackers in football. But we don't have a true number one corner. Our offensive line is still shaky. Defensive line still shaky. We don't have a true number one receiver. We don't have a top tight end. Quarterback, who knows what we're going to do. Quinn Ewers could probably have an opportunity, but if you truly believe Quinn Ewers is the future of this team, I mean, I think you're drinking that hopium juice a little too much. Now, I think Quinn Ewers can be a good NFL quarterback, a good backup, but as far as a starter, I don't know. I don't know if he's got that in him. An assistant GM Alexander was there with Ozzy. Doesn't make sense. And you're right, it don't make sense. What's this comment? You think so, Big C on Newsom? Ozzie Newsome was one of the best general managers of all time, without a shadow of a doubt. He'll go to the Raiders because of Brady. Listen, the Raiders are a very promising job. You got the number one pick in the draft, so you can go out and get your quarterback, right? You got $100 million in cap room. You got a superstar defensive player in Max Crosby. You don't have a lot. You got a potential superstar running back in Gentry or Genty or however you say his name. So the Raiders could turn it around quick. So yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be surprised if John Harbaugh went to the Raiders. In my opinion, I think the Miami needs a defensive-minded head coach. I feel like the defense, if Weaver stays, I think if you give Weaver some more pieces, he can make something happen with that defense. If you give Weaver a legit number one pass rusher, you give him some competent corners, I think Weaver can be all right as defensive coordinator. This is a crucial time for our offense. We got to completely rebuild this offense. Black Juice says, please hire him. The Dolphins are missing culture. Notice the teams who win have a culture. And I don't disagree. And I think that is the one area that John Harbaugh is going to truly help this team the most, if they can somehow get him to come, is he's going to change the culture. He's going to change the culture. But I can't help to feel like John Harbaugh is going to feel like this is an absolute slap in the face to him that they went out and hired a general manager without taking his opinion into consideration. You got to feel like John Harbaugh feels like what's that? The bell of the ball. Everybody's contacting him. Everybody wants him. So the fact that the Miami Dolphins go and hire a general manager and they put out a statement that they don't care, they're prioritizing general manager over head coach, and the fact that you're not taking his opinion into account, or you're not trying to appease him by your hiring of who you're hiring a general manager, you don't think that's going to piss John Harbaugh off? You're already behind the eight ball because of the team that you got, the salary cap hell that you got. So you're just making it that much more difficult for us to get John Harbaugh, in my opinion. We will be okay in a few years, bro. I hope I see it. I'm old. Listen, how many times have we said that though as Dolphin fans? Couple more years, couple more years, couple more years. And Michael, I know you are an older gentleman, but I was a young man at one time saying that. And now I'm getting older. As all of you are. So how many times are we going to say a couple more years and then we're sitting there and 40 years have gone by? 40 years have gone by and we're no better than we were 40 years ago. If anything, we're worse. But I disagree about having us needing a defensive minded coach. I wholeheartedly think we need an offensive head coach. You got to rebuild this offense from top to bottom. This offense was built for Tua Tagovailoa. Tua is no longer the quarterback. You got to rebuild the offense. And now we're watching teams go after Mike McDaniel because they covet his offensive mind. You got the Detroit Lions going. If Mike McDaniel goes to the Lions will be in the Super Bowl next year. I believe that. I believe if he goes to the Lions with that firepower they got on offense, the Lions will go to the Super Bowl next year. That offense will be unstoppable. He's got two running backs that are phenomenal. He's got two very good wide receivers. He's got a very good tight end, a great offensive line. That Detroit offense will be unstoppable next year. Maybe Weaver had a say in the GM choice. Maybe Weaver is going to be the next head coach of the Dolphins. Give Quinn a chance. He only played 3 games. Listen, he's going to get an opportunity. I just don't believe he's the future. We will get the Green Bay coach if they lose. Watch. Are you okay with that, Big C? Listen, I think all those guys are similar. He comes from that Shanahan coaching tree. LaFleur comes from that coaching tree, that Shanahan coaching tree. Marco says, honestly, I think Harbaugh is going to the Giants. I can see it. The Giants got some talent. Yeah, I don't know if Tom Brady's really in control of player day-to-day operations. Tom Brady's got a lot of other shit going on. I mean, Matt LaFleur is not the worst option. He's not the worst. I don't think so on Weaver. I mean, I think it's highly unlikely. But what's Matt LaFleur really done in Green Bay? What has he really done? What's the excuse over there that they haven't been great? And then what are they going to go get? They gonna go get the backup quarterback too, Malik. They're gonna bring Malik along too at quarterback. So do we bring LaFleur, the general manager and the backup quarterback, Malik Willis? Is Malik Willis the answer to the quarterback position in 2026 for the Miami Dolphins? What up, Sean? Long time no see, brother. Big game for the Bills this weekend. Big game for the Bills this weekend. Malik is rumored. Of course he's going to be rumored. Of course he's going to be. Willis has definitely earned a starting job. And I'm not saying he hasn't earned an opportunity to start somewhere. I'm not saying he doesn't. I'm just done with that. I'm done with someone else's leftovers, someone else's, you know what I mean? I don't want to eat off someone else's plate. I want to eat off my own plate. I want to fix my own plate. And I think it would have been nice for, like I said, John Harbaugh is a big name coach. He's a respected name around the league. He would change the culture here in Miami, and that's why I'd want him here more than any other reason. But John Harbaugh obviously knows what he's doing. He helped bring along Lamar Jackson and turn him into an all-pro quarterback. When Lamar Jackson was drafted, people thought he was going to he should be a running back. And he worked with him. He rebuilt that offense. You went from a pocket passer quarterback in Joe Flacco to the most gifted running quarterback this league's ever seen in Lamar Jackson. Consistently having one of the best defenses in the NFL. What do you want, Big C, if you don't get John Harbaugh? Well, it's not going to be an option. What I'd want, the person that I'd want if we didn't get John Harbaugh, the person I want maybe over John Harbaugh would be John Gruden. But it's not going to happen. It's not going to happen. It's not an option. It's not going to happen. It's not an option. But that's my personal preference. I think John Gruden is a leader of men. I think John Gruden would change the culture here. I think John Gruden, the work that he's done with quarterbacks over the last several years with his quarterback classrooms, I think he understands the quarterback position, and he knows how to uncover hidden potential. That'd be my choice, but that's just me. But the Miami Dolphins, like I said, are in a tough spot. You know what I mean? They're in a tough spot. They're in a tough spot because they are at the bottom of the list as far as enticing jobs. This is one of the worst jobs to take right now. Of the 8 available jobs, this is the worst. We have the least amount to work with. And in reality, it comes from a long time of this franchise not doing things the right way. We're limited with how much talent we have on this team because of the poor drafting. Consistently drafting project players. We're taking our first-round picks, all the first-round picks that we've had, and what do we have to show for it? Stefanski, no thank you. I don't want Stefanski anywhere near Miami. When you're talking about potential with your first-round pick, you already messed up. First round picks aren't supposed to be about potential. They're supposed to be about helping your team win immediately. Not this guy has some great potential. He's got hopefully in a couple years. No, no, no. You already messed up if you're doing that. You're already messing up if you're doing that. We gotta. I mean, I hope this general manager job. We already know that Stephen Ross has a problem moving on from people. So even if Sullivan's not the answer at general manager, how long is Stephen Ross going to keep him around? It's almost like even if Sullivan fails, he's going to be here for at least 10 years or until Ross dies, whatever comes first. Because Stephen Ross gives people enough rope to hang themselves and 3 other family members. But have faith. Let's have faith. Until we hear that John Harbaugh has gone somewhere else, there's still a chance. But I truly believe with the hiring of Sullivan, I think that puts an end to the Harbaugh talk. I really do. So you don't want a complete rebuild, Big C? I mean, I think at this point you have to. I think at this point you have to. You don't have enough on this team not to completely rebuild. Brooks wants new money, right? Brewer wants new money. Achan wants new money. I appreciate you, Michael. I mean, for the most part, yeah, I think that's what what do you got? What do you really got? You got Patrick Paul, who's young, right? You got some rookies that from last year who might be okay. Harbaugh and Alexander probably are a package deal. They probably are. They probably are. And that's why it makes no sense that the Miami Dolphins just did what they did. But again, that's a typical Miami Dolphins thing to do. You fired Mike McDaniel with, you have to believe that it was because John Harbaugh was available. Yet, you didn't do all the necessary things to ensure that John Harbaugh came to the Miami Dolphins. You were already behind the 8 ball because of how this team is set up. The lack of talent, the salary cap, the lack of a top 10 draft pick, the lack of not having a franchise quarterback. You were already behind the 8 ball. So you had to go and do something that made John Harbaugh want to come here. And that's probably signing Alexander as your general manager. And they didn't do that. They didn't do it. For what reason? For what reason? Did Sullivan blow you away so much more than Chad Alexander did? Do you really feel like that Sullivan was a better candidate than Chad Alexander? Chad Alexander learned under one of the greatest general managers of all time. The Baltimore Ravens have had just as much success, if not more, than the Green Bay Packers have. That's a proven combo. Harbaugh, Alexander, proven combo. And not only does one Harbaugh like Alexander, both Harbaughs like Alexander, and both Harbaughs are very good coaches. You should trust their opinions. But again, the Miami Dolphins are going to do what the Miami Dolphins want to do. Then Edward, if Harbaugh wants to coach somewhere else, why did they act like Mike McDaniel was safe up until John Harbaugh became available? It just don't make sense to me. You know, Bonnie, maybe Mike McDaniel getting fired had nothing to do with Harbaugh, but I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe. I find it hard to believe. Why? 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 Because all week we thought we were hearing that Mike McDaniel's safe. All week. And the Miami Dolphins are such a great franchise that they're in a position to pass up on uh, a coach the caliber of John Harbaugh. Miller, I ain't messing with you, bro. I ain't messing with you. I see you super chatting TD. You never super chat me, brother. I seen that. I seen it. I seen it. You bust a bus. You gonna super chat so you get your little question read. I talk to you all day, every day. Make the rich richer and the poor poor. Maybe John Harbaugh said no to Miami Big C. Well, that's when you do your due diligence. Before you fire Mike McDaniel, you reach out and say, hey, these shits really, they talk. They talk. They talk. Reach out to his representatives and say, hey, does your guy have an interest in coming to Miami? Yes or no? Yes or no? That's what you get, Miller. That's what you get. You super chat me nothing. I thought we was boys. I got kids. I got kids to feed. Them mofos already getting rich off this thing. They already getting rich off this thing. But anybody that wanna help out with the channel, there's the Cash App. I'd appreciate any and all donations. Go back into this thing of a channel that I got going. Since I can't get super chats at the moment. Oh, you can Cash App. You can Cash App there, Miller. Maybe the Dolphins needed an answer from Harbaugh, and he said not right now. Then you wait. You wait. What's the rush? What's the rush in hiring a general manager? What was the rush? You wait for John Harbaugh. There's no other teams looking for a general manager besides us. Miller not a fan, Big C. Talk shit. If Weaver is hired as a head coach, Baltimore and Miami will be awarded 2 third round. Yeah, I mean, we would get 2 third round picks if Harbaugh's hired somewhere. Or not Harbaugh, but Weaver. If Weaver gets hired as head coach somewhere, we get 2 third round picks, which would be nice. Which would be nice. What tattoo? I never agreed to get no tattoo. You pay for my tattoo, I'll get a Dolphins logo. You gonna pay for it? But we'll see. We'll see where this goes. You know, you gotta believe that if Matt LaFleur's fired, that there's a possibility that he's the Miami Dolphins' next head coach. But who knows? Who knows? Who knows if they even got a good relationship? Just because they both work for the Packers doesn't mean they like each other. Yeah, have Troy Aikman. Well, Troy Aikman, they're saying, is behind the hiring of John Eric Sullivan. They say that Troy Aikman really liked him. Did he? Did he? And what makes Troy Aikman such an expert on the whole thing anyway? What makes Troy Aikman such an expert on front office work? You hire Alexander anyway. What does it hurt? Well, he was a top 4 candidate for you. He learned under Ozzie Newsome, one of the best general managers of all time. Shoot, if he scorns you, you fire him. You fire him. Shoot. Kevin Stefanski eyeing Miami and John Harbaugh very interested in Jackson Dart. Yeah, I mean, there's going to be a lot of rumors. There's going to be a lot. Kevin Stefanski, I'd be sick if he's brought on. I'd be sick. I never said if we didn't win 8 games that I get a tattoo. I want you to get an upside down buffalo tattoo. What's an upside down buffalo? Big C, do you think Sullivan keeps Marvin Allen and Champ Kelly, or do you think he cleaned house completely and brings in his own people? I mean, I don't know if he can fire Champ Kelly. Champ Kelly is Stephen Ross's guy. Those are Stephen Ross's guys. You know what I mean? Reported Miami first contacted Jimmy Johnson and referred Ross to Aikman. That was a rumor. I don't know if that's necessarily true. That's what people assumed. People were like, maybe he reached out to Jimmy Johnson, and maybe Jimmy Johnson said he was too busy, but maybe you should talk to Troy Aikman. There's no real proof of that. There's no real proof. That was just all an assumption. But I mean, maybe it did happen. Maybe it did. But again, I mean, I don't know. I don't know. I know it's looking typical Miami Dolphin mess. This is typical Dolphin shit that we're so used to seeing. It looked like Miami Dolphins were going to do the smart thing, the right thing. The right thing is going after John Harbaugh. John Harbaugh has had a tremendous amount of success. A tremendous amount of success in the NFL. Regardless of how good of teams he's had, regardless. For the past 18 years, there's not very many coaches in the NFL that can say they've had the type of success John Harbaugh has. He became available when we needed a head coach. And you did not go out and do everything possible to get him. It is what it is at this point. We'll have to see what happens. Again, I'm not against LaFleur necessarily, but is he so much more different than the rest of the people that have came underneath Shanahan? Buffalo 0-8 in the road in playoffs. If Buffalo loses, the coach gets fired. And then John Harbaugh might be going to Buffalo. Who knows? Yeah, you go and you. I mean, if Buffalo fires their head coach, you would have to assume that they become number one on John Harbaugh's list. You'd have to assume that they become number one for John Harbaugh. Simply because you get a Josh Allen in his prime. And I don't know if you could pass that up. I don't know if you can pass up going from Lamar Jackson to Josh Allen. And what better way to stick it to Josh Allen or to Lamar Jackson if you believe the rumors and believe that they really had issues over there in Baltimore? What better way to stick it to Lamar Jackson than to go work and coach Josh Allen? So we shall see. Again, typical Miami Dolphins not doing everything in their power to potentially make this team the best it can possibly be. We always got to go the side road. There's a clear path to getting this team out of the dysfunction that we've been in for the last 25 years. There was a clear path. You hire Chad Alexander, you hire John Harbaugh, and that's it. But again, we choose to do things the difficult way. We choose to do things that don't make sense. That don't make sense. Zero goddamn sense. Again, I don't feel comfortable. As many problems as Mike McDaniel had, I truly believe Mike McDaniel has great potential. And Mike McDaniel is going to be a great head coach someday. Trust me when I say that. He's going to go somewhere, and if he goes to Detroit, I think Detroit goes to the Super Bowl next year. If he goes to Detroit this offseason, I think they go to the Super Bowl next year. And if they go to the Super Bowl and that offense is unstoppable, like I think it could be, Mike McDaniel will get another coaching opportunity, and Mike McDaniel will be a successful head coach. It's not a foregone conclusion. Harbaugh isn't coming here. Alexander and Harbaugh worked together years ago. Who's to say there's much left in the tank? Sullivan, odd. How do you feel about Mike McCarthy? I don't want Mike McCarthy, to be honest. I don't want Mike McCarthy, to be honest. I have no Mike McCarthy, Stefanski, neither one of those guys do it for me. Neither one of them guys do it for me. But we'll see. We'll see. Listen, the door's not closed on or John Harbaugh coming here, but I do think the Miami Dolphins made it more difficult. And again, they were already behind the 8 ball because of the lack of talent, the jacked up salary cap, the lack of not having a franchise quarterback, and the numerous other things that are wrong with this franchise. But if anything else pops up, I'll be here. I appreciate you all. I love you all. Cash App across the bottom of the screen if you guys want to donate to the channel. I'm trying to get monetized. It's a very difficult process for me for some reason. I have big plans, but things cost money. You know what I mean? I appreciate you all. I love you all. And I will see you later. And hopefully we get some more news coming out of Miami that John Harbaugh is the next head coach of the Miami Dolphins. But at this point in time, I think it's a long shot. But I love y'all. I appreciate y'all. And you know what it is. Fins up. Peace.
Yo. Big C in the house. You know the name. Fin Posse Podcast. Changing the game. Fins up high. Feel the aqua and orange. Miami heat blazing. We scorching the floor. Marino the tour. We stacking the saga. Legacy deep, call it football nirvana. Big C, break it down, got the stats in his veins. Play-by-play knowledge like he's calling the chains. Fins flying on the field, opponents feel the blast. Tyreek cheetah speed, leaving DBs in the past. Waddle with the wiggle, defense with the clamp. Aqua drip so clean, whole squad's the champ. Tune in, Big C, got the mic on lock. Fin Posse Podcast, it's the cream of the crop. Breaking news, hot takes, repping the block. For the Dolphin faithful, it's the one-stop shop. Fin Posse. We the voice of the fans. Miami stand tall, got the world in our hands. Best podcast, yo, ain't no debate. Big C, big vibes, setting it straight. Defense smash, call it aqua tsunami. X locking routes like a South Beach Armani. O-line holding strong, trenches like a fortress. Big C dissected, no stack goes dormant.